The summer movie season is upon us, and as always, a mountain of merch has come with it. Toys! Clothes! The $80 popcorn bucket that looks like Galactus's head! But the specific type of merchandise I want to talk about today isn't as popular as it once was, and I think that's a shame. I'm talking about movie novelizations. Now, I don't mean the 30,000 novels set in the Star Trek or Star Wars universes telling new continuing adventures of those characters. Those novels are fine and I like them, but I'm talking about the books that take the stories of the movies and the TV shows and retell those same stories in novel form. You see, kids, there was a time before you could watch any movie or TV show you wanted on demand on a streaming service, unless they removed it for tax purposes. And in those days, having the novel of the movie was sometimes the best way to relive the story if you didn't have any other way to access it. Movie novelizations have been around for a very long time, but I think the golden age of the form came around in the 1980s, during my formative years. You could fill an entire library with novelizations of the movies that came out in that decade alone. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Gremlins, The Last Starfighter, Batman. They were ubiquitous and it was glorious. I love reading these books, and for various reasons. First of all, they're usually based on early versions of the script before the movie is even finished being made, and sometimes the movie changes in the production and the book might not necessarily reflect those changes. I remember reading the novelization of X2, X-Men United, and being totally dumbfounded because the ending was completely different. It was written by Chris Claremont, for crying out loud, the man who made the X-Men what they are. If you'd think if anybody was going to get it right, it would be him. Turned out, of course, it wasn't his fault. Sometimes a novelization can fill in the blanks of things that the fans think are missing. There's long been speculation that Christopher Nolan's third Batman movie would have brought back the Joker if we hadn't lost Heath Ledger. I don't know if that's true or not, but for fans who are wondering what the Joker was up to during the events of The Dark Knight Rises, you can find a somewhat oblique answer to that question if you read Greg Cox's novel. Sometimes the novels will give you an epilogue that goes past the point where the movie ends. In James Caan's novelization of Goonies, we find out that the gems Mike brought back from One-Eyed Willie's ship, due to salvage laws, make him the owner legally of the entire ship and all of its contents. All of a sudden, the Walsh family is obscenely rich. They buy the entire town of Astoria, basically, and turn it into a Goonie paradise, even tearing down the country club and making it a community center. Oh, and Chunk's parents adopt Sloth, give him a bar mitzvah, and legally change his name to Jason Sloth Cohen. Brings a tear to my eye every time. Sometimes the novelization gives you more access to a character's inner thoughts, which can be hard to get across in a movie. And sometimes the writer brings a bit of their own flavor into it. In this novelization of Supergirl, for instance, there's an odd moment where Kara laments the fact that, in her mind, she's never going to be as beautiful as her mother. It's kind of an odd digression, until you realize that the writer, Norma Fox Mazer, was best known for writing chapter books aimed at preteen girls, kind of like Judy Blume. And to be fair, Kara's mother was played by Mia Farrow. Then again, Kara was played by Helen Slater, so... And sometimes the novelizations are so bizarre that it makes you wonder why they even exist. This is one of my favorites, the novelization of Mel Brooks' slapstick sci-fi epic, Spaceballs. A lot of the humor in the movie is visual, and there are plenty of times where you can tell that the writer is struggling to try to make these sight gags work in novel form. And because the book was published by Scholastic's Point imprint and aimed at elementary school students, which I was at the time, they had to pull back on some of the more blue humor. Dot Matrix's Virgin Alarm, for example, just becomes a simple siren. And her classic line, "It's programmed to go off before you do," is changed to the far less funny, "We'll have none of that, Mr. Makeout." But the most interesting thing to me about this book is the author, Jovial Bob Stein. If that rings a bell, it might be because a few years later, this writer would become a massive success using just his initials. R.L. Stein. These books are a fun kind of artifact of the time, and some of them, like the novelization of John Carpenter's Halloween, go for a lot of money now. I don't have one of those, because they go for a lot of money now. Movie novelizations still exist, but they aren't published nearly as frequently as they used to be, and I think that's a shame. There's a lot of contemporary movies that could really benefit from this treatment. I think the recent slasher rom-com Heart Eyes would actually be a perfect fit, for example. Or novelizations with the John Wick universe. Those would be a lot of fun. And I'll be honest, I would totally read the 57-volume box set novelizing the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. But until then, if anybody wants to get me a present, just find a used bookstore with a good selection of these things and take me there for a road trip. I never get tired of them. Oh, and if there's any studios looking for somebody to write a novelization, I am available.